Hey, friends, we are fearless. Welcome to the podcast. My name is Frances Young, and we are here on episode 6.
Oh my God, we made it to 6. We're still alive.
Before I get into this episode, I want you to already know what your human design energy type is. And if you do know it, fantastic. Pull out your app, pull out that PDF that you got somewhere from someone, and follow along. See if what we're saying resonates with you. How do I better understand this part of my graph that looks like it's calculus or something that just doesn't make sense to you? I'm not a math person. And if you do not have your graph, if you do not know what your human design energy type is, don't worry, I got you. You're going to go to my website at www.francesyoung, FRANCESYOUNG, followed by CPT, or catphiliptiger.com. And you're going to go to a page, Your Energy. You're going to input some information, and then you're going to have your human design energy type. And you can follow along. So, let's get into it. Okay, so I have another guest with me today, and her name is Ada. Ada is also a generator, so we've been backstage getting excited about this, and I was like, oh my God, we need to just hit record to capture all of our funny moments together. So, hi, Ada. How did we meet?
So you and I were introduced by the artist and poet KJ Berry, and I'm the founder of the Narrative Astrology Lab, and you were interested in learning more about astrology, and we talked, and we generated at each other. And you joined the lab, and we became fast friends.
Literally. In our, it was an hour call, I think, on our very first Zoom. I'm trying to recall it because I just remember the energy. I was sitting on a bouncy ball at my desk because I had a bouncy ball as a chair, very generator moment. And I don't even think that I realized that you lived in, United States. I'm just connecting with this person that all of a sudden I need to know. It just feels right. We were getting the sacral lit up. And then we hopped on a call and we realized what our astrology was as well to each other. And we were just fast friends, immediate generator juice. So we won't riff on how much we love each other. We're going to go into episode 6. That's my Leo sun, and Ada's Leo rising coming out in that moment for any astrology nerds listening. So this Fearless Life podcast is all about the real conversations I have with my friends, regardless if they're fast friends, because it feels like we've known each other for a long time. We're going to talk about Ada's human design graph in a very candid, we're having coffee, tea kind of way. I'll shout out to Ada. Ada, as a professional astrologer, and she'll entitle some of her sessions on her website for clients that are potentially going to book with her as Tea with an Astrologer. And I'm like, this is tea with a human design person moment. I think that's cool.
I love that.
So Ada has pre-asked me 3 questions about her human design graph, her chart. And with being an astrologer, she gets the human design thing right away. You've dove in real fast, and it's awesome. So she has asked me some pretty in-depth questions. I have done a little bit of okay, this is where I might want to go with this, because they are particular. Even for somebody that is brand new, still listening to this, realizes that they're a generator, you will be able to pick something out of this episode and say, hey, that resonates. Or, okay, I want to learn more about this piece of my graph, even if you're not a generator too. So I even wrote them out on cue cards. Ada's first question. Ada and I have pretty similar graphs. And I'll show her graph in a minute. It's on my whiteboard. So, we are both motivated by fear. But for me, in this case, Ada, that tends to manifest as anxiety. What should fear look like in a healthy way for me? So, first of all, here is Ada's human design graph drawn by myself. Ta-da! When Ada just saw this backstage, when you first saw it, were you like, why? How is it so big? I want to know more of your reaction.
The first thing that I noticed was the colors. And the second thing that I noticed was I have that definition down the middle. And I was like, oh my gosh, how have I not noticed that I have that definition down the middle and no definition on top or the sides?
That's awesome. This is another reason why I draw these things out. People are going to realize things about their design that they didn't know before. And you've been looking at it consistently for at least over a year, maybe?
Yeah.
I know you knew about it before me. Right? Human design?
A little bit. It was hilarious to me that you think that I'm good at it, because I feel like with astrology, and with human design, I'm like, okay, this takes effort. I'm going slowly like a tortoise.
You are good at it. In certain episodes I've recorded, I had a girlfriend that's only known about human design for 2 months. She relayed all of this information to me in the moment without looking at anything. And I was like, Janelle, high five, you know so much. She was like, I do? I'm like, yeah.
How's that?
Okay, I'm going to talk about that center and that openness that you saw on the side and relate it to this question. I'm going to restate Ada's question just so we can hear it again. We are both motivated by fear. But for me, that tends to manifest as anxiety. What should fear look like in a healthy way for me? So, in human design, there are 4 arrows that you would have seen when I held up Ada's graph. And they surround the very 2 top chakras, the upright triangle and the bottom upside down triangle. Those are called the 4 transformations in human design. It's a little bit nerdier after you learn energy type, strategy, authority. I love how Ada's being like, yeah, this is they're the deeper parts. There are 4 moments to how a human will operate on a day-to-day basis, that if we are doing those in alignment to what our body is telling us to, there will then be these synchronicities that all of a sudden just happen. And life just seems to move at even more rapid rates because our system is able to take in and is working in the way that it's supposed to. Everything happens seamlessly. And the 4 transformations are, I'll say them separately, and then I love making like this beautiful sentence about it to wrap them all together to show how they link. 1 is digestion. Our human design graph can tell us what our body wants to take in and when, including information as well as food. Number 2 is environment, where our body feels the best in the world, in our house, wherever. Then there's something called perspective. That's how our mind actually is designed to see what is in front of it, wherever it goes. And the last piece is what Ada's question is referring to, and that's motivation. Our brain, once it sees something, will be motivated. There'll be a snap of a moment of what our body and brain will interpret in the same moment. It is still our mind that's actually having the see happen, and then something clicks. It's interesting that in human design, the way it can be read in our graph, that a human can be motivated by fear and it be the correct way in which we are meant to be motivated to do something. And that just sounds counterintuitive. Like if I'm afraid to do something, why would I do it? Right? When I say it like that, like Ada's like, yeah, why does that doesn't make sense? So those are the 4 transformations. And the way that I like to say it to wrap it all together is if we're eating and taking in the correct information in the places that our body likes to, we'll see the things that we are meant to see and then be motivated in order to act on the things that we saw correctly. So we can't have one without the other. It starts with what we take in, and then it goes from there. So
That makes sense.
right? It's kind of like, oh, of course it has to go that way.
Yes.
As opposed to being like, if I just see things that I'm afraid of, then I know that I'm, doing the thing that I'm supposed to do in my day. I'm going, because it doesn't really work that way. We got to start with like basics. But we're going to talk about just this essence of fear and anxiety for Ada and how her brain is processing it. So I'm also going to point out that I'm closing my eyes of like, how am I going to start answering this question after I've explained those things? The arrows either point left or right. And this is going to help with the explanation for getting Ada to see where we go with her understanding of this. Her motivation arrow points to the right. And any arrow of the 4, when it points to the right, means that Ada doesn't necessarily have to act right away. The universe, her world, is going to show her what potentially something, if I don't do this thing at this point, as opposed to her pre-acting. We've talked about the left arrow moment of feeling like your body and your mind is more in charge. You're off kind of doing your thing, waiting for these moments of, oh, now it's my time to do something.
Mm-hmm.
I know that resonates for you. With saying that, Ada and I both have fear as our motivation. But there is something that is particular to Ada's motivation that is different from mine. And you have a sense that your body will feel when your motivation of fear, Ada, is, in air quotes, operating correctly or in alignment for your system. And it's a word that's called meditation. Meditation, when we actually think of maybe what that means to meditate, it's a very calm without having to force. I'll give an example, and then Ada, I want to hear from you because I've talked a lot. A very clear example of how I know that my motivation operated correctly in a real life example for myself is back when I was auditioning to get into either a post-secondary dance program of some kind or just when I was going to university and choosing that path for me at that time in life. I auditioned to a bunch of different dance schools, whether it was in the States or in Ontario or somewhere else in Canada. Nothing felt right. Nothing was right. If I tried to explain why, I could sort of maybe come up with some logic, but body was just like, no. As kind of like a last resort, I sent in an application to the University of Winnipeg and the School of Contemporary Dancers. And for myself, though, the one reason why I was like, I don't think this will be the one, was that the School of Contemporary Dancers at that point did not offer point work. And I was graduating from a professional ballet program thinking that I was going to be a professional ballet dancer. Long story short of thinking that this wasn't the right option for me, they got back to me after my audition tape went in within, I don't know, like it was in a day, less than that maybe. And they were like, we want you. Just tell us that you're coming. I could tell it was like, oh my God, we need you. You're great. Blah, blah, blah. But my logical brain was like, there's no point work. And then part of me also realized, oh, but nothing else is right. This feels like this fear of a last resort, but I wasn't the one that sought them out. It kind of felt like this, again, last minute moment. I said yes, and it turned out to be the right one. But again, it came to me, my motivation arrow is also pointed to the right. But my sense that my body feels is judgment. I made the right judgment call on that. After, and I think back on that experience of a very short period of time, I was like, there was nothing else. Fear is this moment of there's nothing else. I better fucking jump. There's my swearing. I better just dive in. Okay, let's go. It came to me, right arrow. I knew I made the right judgment call. None of those other schools were right. So that's how motivation, as to how my brain, once something was presented, Fear saw it. I knew I made the right call. That was my experience. So Ada, I know I haven't even talked about anxiety yet and that it feels like it manifests as anxiety in your body. Me going on that long tangent and explaining that example, how does everything I've said resonate with how can this show up as being healthy for me? How does fear feel healthy? Or can you think of an example where legit it was, oh, now I see that that was fear and I felt good, or I felt just naturally calm in that meditative state?
You put it that way, and it made me realize that there are actually two things going on with me, and I've smushed them into one. When you put it in terms of having a calm and meditative state, I'm realizing that when there is a legitimate crisis going on, I seem to have this superpower where everybody else around me is losing their minds. I just feel very calm, very focused. If there was a fire, I would be the person that you would want to have in the house because I would be the person who was like, okay, let's grab our irreplaceable legal documents and valuables. Everyone go out this door. Okay, that door is covered in flames. Let's go out this other door. And just very calmly knowing exactly what to do. But I feel like, and this is where the anxiety comes in, I don't live in a world where those kinds of legitimate emergencies are every day. And frankly, I don't want to because that would be an incredibly stressful way to live.
Oh my
So
God, yeah.
I feel a little bit like how dogs get crazed when they're working dogs and they don't have the right job to do. I feel a lot of the time like there's this tingling underlying anxiety because I feel like I'm made to be like an EMT or someone who works in an emergency room or some kind of like a crisis counselor. And my life is just not that stressful most of the time. It's like I'm looking for the emergencies and they don't exist.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Amazing. I know exactly where to go with this, and I'll also draw in you seeing, oh my God, I have so much energy that's through my center. And then also, too, I have so much open in my graph. This is where I knew this would go today. So when we talk about anxiety, anxiety can harvest in our bodies in so many different ways. And when more of our graph is open or white, Ada happens to have the same plus one more white center than I do. Ada has the spleen open, the root center, the emotional center, which is the solar plexus, the ego, and the crown. She has 5 of 9 centers open. And that's, I mean, she's designed that way. There's a purpose to this. But what it means with regards to anxiety and soaking up things in the world that can cause energetic stress, let's say it like in the body, that our brain can resonate as what we've given it in the 21st century is the word anxiety. It then plays loops in our minds of, oh my God, I think this is anxiety. And it's trying to stress itself out on purpose because stress has become so comfortable for us as a society because there are so many people walking around stressed in X way. They're emotional for whatever reason, just painting a very broad stroke. They're feeling pressures to do things when maybe they don't have to. Very broad stroke. Their work, their whatever. They actually are feeling in the moment fear, which is what our spleen is designed to pick up on in the human design sense, let alone our actual like splenic organ was our first fight or flight awareness center as we evolved as human. And 8 is picking up on motivation, ego, and the heart center in human design is motivation and drive. And so many humans think that they need to go, go, go and do. There's a feeling of motivation for maybe times that they actually don't need to be motivated to do anything. And then also our crown in human design is associated with pressure and associated with inspiration and trying to draw in things that we want to experience. Ada is picking up on those and feeling them all because her centers are open in those places. That can get confusing when you get nerdy about human design and you have fear as a motivator and you're like, am I actually feeling it? Or, as Ada described, when there are moments in my life, I'm actually pretty calm and things are happening and then I'll do the thing. Differentiating what is ours and what isn't is just a life hack for us all. Do you want to riff off of what I just came up with out of my brain there, Ada?
No, I want you to keep going. Take
going.
us there, Fran.
Because anxiety, I've been like toying with this for myself as well, for having similar centers open as Ada does. My crown is defined. I do not have an open crown at the very top center of my graph. My opinion on anxiety and how our body deals with stress has changed so much from learning my design and then also realizing that I have fear as how my brain will be motivated. It sounds like such an interesting way to look at it. But our 4 transformations are this extra layer that if we know how to empty out our centers, in this case for Ada and I, our spleen, the spleen being these, I'm not sure if something just happened or I need to be aware of this. And we soak that all up with having it white and open as a sponge. We're picking up on the world's moments, which is, a lot these days. And the bottom is our root center. So with us having an open root, it's been an interesting conversation with a few people lately that I really like deadlines. At the beginning of making this podcast and pre-figuring it all out, I was like, oh my God, give yourself a deadline, Frances, because if I don't, it'll just be endless. Gave me drive when I needed it, as opposed to trying to be on someone else's timeline or a fake timeline of the universe of me preconceiving that, oh, I need to do this as fast as I can. No, stick to your own timeline, Frances. Me speaking to me in my head. An open route very much has to go on its own time frame, even for us being generators, Ada, with this life force that lives within us. We don't have to go at the same pace as everybody else. There's so much pressure to do and to go in the world. So I'm releasing that for myself when I think about it. Non-emotional, we just know we're the more emotional ones. And anxiety, in my opinion, is not emotion. It's something our body is feeling, but I think it derives and is how we as humans try to give aspects of an actual emotion to say 2 very distinct, sad or happy. I think anxiety is a tone of sad. Because if we picture a child and they're happy and they're like, if somebody didn't, and if people are watching me on the screen, I'm like vibrating. I'm like, oh my God, I'm so excited. But kids are like that, right? And we could see that as being happy. But somebody else could be like, oh my goodness, that child is super frantic. Like something's wrong with the kid.
Yeah.
Or another term, anxiety. Maybe that kid has anxiety about something because they're like, they don't want to be there in that moment, even though they've got a smile on their face. So it's been interesting for me to like toggle with the word anxiety lately, because I think it's just this feeling of energy that we don't know what to do with in our body. So when we're picking up on all this energy that we don't know what to do in our body, our brain starts to create a story and creates the anxiety feeling, or creates the anxiety word of what we associate anxiety to be in our language these days. I'm even going to pull up the question, what does fear look like for me in a healthy way? Waiting till the last possible moment to act. In like the shortest sentence for Ada's particular type of motivation, right arrow, and her body will feel very calm. This sense of meditation that this is the right thing to do when it's been presented to me. It's sort of similar to mine. And for me, it does a lot of the time feel like it's the last moment that I need to act, or I've dealt with my emotions because I'm a non-emotional and I take in pressure and I take in fear and I take in other people's projections, just like anybody does. But for people that have lots of open centers, and if there's any reflectors listening, like you guys take it all in, so I can only imagine how they feel, is that once we find this calm, cool, and collected moment, whether it's been a day or a couple hours, that last moment to act will show up. I was having a light bulb moment when you were talking earlier, Ada, of literally something that happened in the past week for me that was a completely different type of scenario that I'm pretty sure my body was then motivated by fear in the right way, and I knew I made the right call with my judgment sense. I had to deal with a relationship that needed to change. I really didn't want to deal with it. Pardon me. Apparently my body didn't really want to deal with it either because my throat just caught up to me. Yeah, our body's telling us all the time, even when we're like speaking what's going on. I didn't want to deal with something, but I knew I had to, of what I'm desiring, what my body is searching for in this life, in this week of time frame. I had to deal with a relationship. There was all of emotional angst of me trying to figure out what to do, when to do it. There were certain ways that I was potentially going to deal with it. Then I thought, oh, no, that's not right. No. Then waited to the last possible moment because throughout my day, the day timeline changed of who I was going to see at what point in what day, and then led me to the moment of, oh, you can deal with it in this way, Fran. Act in this way, even though I was still a little bit like, oh my God, I have to deal with this. So feeling my fear. After I dealt with it, I was like, that was the right call. Yeah. And then I had like a self high five moment. After describing your centers, Ada, and how open you are on your sides and the bottom, how does that resonate for you now thinking about, okay, so what is fear and how is it healthy for me when I'm thinking about my motivation specifically?
So I feel like I can definitely recognize what it feels like when it's on and when I'm in a good place. And when you were talking about anxiety as like a body thing, that really resonated for me because I know people who have anxiety where it's very much up here and it's thoughts. And for me, anxiety is so physical. It really feels that description that you had of like, is it anxiety or is it excitement? That really resonated for me because it feels like this electrical charge that I'm holding in my body that has nowhere to go. And how do I either disconnect from that or figure out how to get the energy to flow out of my body? But that's probably like a huge other conversation. But it made me realize that I think that one of the big issues that I have with this motivation is that I feel like unless something is on fire, like I have no motivation at all. And I'm just sitting there vibrating, you know?
Yeah. And this is the part where everybody deals with their energetic body that they've been given in a different way. As a health professional first before human design expert, I went down all the rabbit holes of how the heck do I deal with my body and when I'm feeling what. And now there's all these things that everybody is saying. An ice bath is the best way. And this is the best way to deal with your body and empty out. And this is the best way to do this. Blah, 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 blah. Wow. The reason why I do that funny interpretation is because I tell clients what to do on a daily basis out of the best of my knowledge of what I've researched, but now fully based on their design. And I know that a lot of the time what will get shown up for them as to how to deal with different things like, okay, I've figured out that this feels like anxiety in my body and how do I deal with it? Or to just change the energy. It's going to be different for Ada and it's going to be different for me. And I have only just recently figured out personally how to deal with my emotions as a non-emotional. And there'll be another level that I figure out how to deal with it too. But that took me from 2019, 20, 21, 22, 20. It's taken me 6 years, and only 2 of those I have known about human design, but to start to understand what my emotions mean to me and how to deal with it in the moment. Oh my God. It was like a full circle moment of being like, oh my God, life is hard, but yet easy at the same time. Dealing with any type of energetic charge, whether it's like it starts to feel like my body is getting hot because I'm getting emotional. That's something that I've been resonating with lately. Or what I was describing is this like hyper child. Where do I put it? Yes. Okay. Take 3 breaths. I try not to do anything. If I'm starting to feel, but like something has changed my emotional experience, I've read a text, something has happened, whatever. I try to not have an initial reaction. I do have an Aries moon, so I do light up pretty fast. Now I've realized that. I used to freeze. I used to be a freeze person though, but that's also a moment of change. If I'm going to put in astrology moments of dealing with something that's immediate and a moon and an emotional need that's immediate. Hopefully I described that appropriately, Ada, being the
you
astrologer.
absolutely did. I mean,
Okay.
Aries is all about predator-prey dynamics. And so the freeze response is when you're in a prey place, whereas the pause, I'm not going to react kind of way is very much more the big cat kind of, I'm going to sit in this grass until the gazelle calms down and thinks I'm gone kind of response.
So I get personally both, but I try to actually not do anything. Then I realize, okay, emotions have changed. Okay, I'm feeling a body sensation. Okay, then I start to not go through the checklist, but it's just giving myself a second to register what just happened because something changed. And then once I have that, then I'm like, okay, now what do I need to do? And this is all happening in somewhere between the span of a second to 5 seconds. Our bodies are this fast. Once we're a little bit more aware of something has changed energetically in our bodies, I will bring this one thing back up. Then I'm going to let Ada riff and see what is going on in Ada's brain for a moment. And then we'll go to question 2. How are you feeling about that, Ada?
This is great.
Okay. Is that Ada was mentioning earlier that if, Ada on a day-to-day basis just happens to be a firefighter, a person who fights fires on a daily basis, she's acting in the moment. There are split-second decisions, and Ada is going to be like, yep, I've got this, no problem. In Ada's body for how she's motivated to act. She looks fear straight in the eye. And that has to be momentary reaction, regardless of what emotions that she is feeling in her body, right? But again, life doesn't operate for every single human like that on the planet. And Ada was given a design that didn't have to worry about that. So that's also okay too. The best part about human design, when we start to realize different aspects of our design and they resonate in different ways or light bulbs pop into us, we were given our exact design on purpose for a reason. Ada wasn't meant to be a fighter with her particular motivation. And maybe there is somebody that has fear as a motivation that is going to help them and they are a fighter, but I bet you the rest of their design is entirely different. So that works. How are you feeling about all of those things? And talking about what would I do in the moment to change this energetic anxiety to rein in if I actually need to do anything? I also came up with another idea. I didn't talk about the opposite. When you feel you need to do something, Ada, I need, if you're like scrounging and reaching and pushing and pulling, that's actually her opposite. That's her brain playing a trick on Ada. Ada, we've talked about this a little bit on lectures and offline moments. Our motivation arrow in human design will have something that is giving us a trip, let alone the conditioning of the world of what people tell us and how we should be motivated and how we should do things. Ada's brain, if it's going on a loop of I need to do this thing because in a grasping, in a frantic, in an anxiety essenced energy, I think we found it. after 30 minutes of riffing on it and going in the depths of my brain about human design. That can you resonate with the feeling of that sometimes if your brain's being like, I need, and it feels like that's the time where it's actually not your place to act or be motivated.
Yeah.
That's not the correct motivation that you're feeling.
Yeah. And when I talk about anxiety, like that, I definitely have the energetic buzzing thing that we were talking about. That's definitely a thing, but that's very obvious in terms of I shouldn't be following that, or like it's loud enough and uncomfortable enough that I'm like, okay, I have this visceral, I don't like that. But the grabbing and I need to fix this, that is really what gets me. And I definitely resonate with that description and the feeling that I get caught in. It feels like I'm in a river and I get caught in one of those pools that goes round and round and round and round.
Yeah. And so mine too, with being fear is my motivator. When I am pushing myself in an energetic vibration of need, I need to do this in order to make more money. Even my body feels like, oh, that's not how we're meant to operate, yo. No. No. And now that I've played around with it for, 2 years, but my body's been doing it the whole time since I came into this earth the moment I took my first breaths. Only now do humans have this different type of language to look at how our brains are potentially meant to speak to us and how our body is potentially meant and designed to speak to us, that we get to remove all these other ideas that we've been told how to do X, Y, Z in life. And human design is like, here, try this.
Yeah. And putting that together with what you said earlier about how the 4 transformations work together, I'm wondering if the issue when you start to get into those mind loops is that it's like you're caught in those right arrows and the change needs to come in the left ones. Is that?
100%.
Yes.
Yeah. You said,
I get it.
High five to me. I did it. Yes, 100%. The founder of human design, the man that channeled it, I'm just going to say part of his name, Ra. Thank you, Ra. He said that our food and our information is the biggest conditioner out there. It's the biggest thing that changes how our body is operating on a day-to-day. So if we don't put into our system what our system wants, then our system isn't operating with the best fuel. It's having a Ferrari, and you put in regular gasoline as opposed to premium.
That makes so much sense.
I think I heard somebody say that once. Yeah, I know, right? But it's like, oh, well, then why? Then this is why it comes back full circle on health and wellness, probably why I'm in the health and wellness industry as well, is that, yes, there are so many foods on this planet that are healthy for us. We've manufactured foods that are healthy for us, as well as ones that are not. I know we can laugh about that for days. As humans, we wouldn't still be here alive in this moment, operating with all of this big, massive change that's happened in such a fast rate in the past 100 years. Let's give that as a snapshot. Unless we weren't fueling ourselves at least somewhat correctly. It's now just getting a little bit more in tune. We've only had human design since 1987. We have all these resources to fuel ourselves correctly, in air quotes, according to human design. Now we get to try on in this next phase of, oh my goodness, everything's going in crazy directions. What is life? Of, okay, I'm going to discern what I need to put in my system to know that then I'll be in the right place to see the things I'm supposed to see. And my motivation's just going to happen naturally without trying to overthink it. And both, I realized in this moment, both of my examples I told you, I'm realizing them post, right? Your examples of thinking about, yes, I am this person, I can deal with the burning fire no matter what. You're realizing that post something happening.
Yeah.
We realize that our motivation in those times of our life were correct. But in the moment, if I start trying to human design shit while I'm in a crisis, personally, as being a human design expert,
It's probably not supposed to happen that way.
We're just supposed to be humans having a human experience. We don't have to make it that complicated all the time. That's where I just start to laugh at myself and be like, Fran, just be a human for a sec. Take your brain out of it. Let your body lead you. Okay. I love all of that riff. Second question. This one's going to be so great because any generator or manifesting generator listening on the planet will be able to resonate with this. Ada, you bring out my excitement like no one else. Because we talk on this subject and you being an astrologer, it's this mutual language that I'm like, I'm talking to my best friend that I could talk for hours about it.
Yes.
So,
Nerd powers.
nerd powers. Yes. As a generator, how do I balance the need to respond in the moment and also plan ahead? I often find myself doing things I've committed a yes to or that felt like a yes from my sacral prior to then going to eventually doing something that no longer feels like a yes. So Ada's question is, how do I deal with this?
Yes.
I love this is my day-to-day moments also. I am a plan aheader. If anyone in this moment were to see my Google Calendar, it is color-coded. I have Virgo tendencies. I'm obsessed. I want to know when I'm bringing in money. I want to know how many clients I have in a day. I am looking after my life. I'm going to stop making examples, but I like some sense of rigidity and figuring my life out.
Mm-hmm.
Now, generators have a strategy. That's how they operate in the world, how they go from point A to point B. That is called responding. And a generator does not know what it wants until it is in front of their face. Mm-hmm. So that their body can have a physical reaction. Their sacral center lights up. That's their life force. And the life force goes yes or Ada's asking my response, my strategy, when I know something's a yes in the moment, because Ada is also a non-emotional. Her emotions are not designed to affect her decisions. It's a whole other side tangent, though. We're going to leave that off to the side. And she said yes to something. She said yes to the family dinner that's 2 weeks away. Then the family dinner comes up and something happened that day, or it's been a stressful week, and no longer does Ada's sacral say, yes, go to this dinner. How do I deal with this? My short answer, don't go to dinner.
I knew you were going to say that.
I know that sounds crazy with regard to how, as humans, yes, we got to plan a vacation to look forward to. Yes, we got to plan dinners to see our friends and family. I've got to plan this coffee. I have to plan this meeting because this meeting is going to turn into a client that then pays me. Planning.
Yeah.
And then there's the day-to-day moments of also asking our body what it is physically capable of doing. And everyone else in our life, let alone humans on the planet, that are on their own timeline. This is something that I play with daily, Ada. I was so happy when I saw this question because I'm still pre-scheduling clients on a Saturday. But do I like working Saturdays? Does it feel like I work every day right now? Yes. But I'm still trying to make sure that, okay, in the moment of what this feels like to say yes, do it. And then still on the day, re-ask myself because my energy is going to be different the day before, few hours leading up to, and sometimes still, especially for being non-emotionals. When that day comes, that dinner comes, and I'm still not feeling it, if I know I physically have the energy, even though I ask my sacral questions that are very basic of yes, no, do I still want to do this today? Or I ask myself, do I want to work today? If I get enough of a something that is saying it doesn't have to be as an excited, yes, oh my God, it doesn't have to be the optimal,
Yeah.
juicy generator response. But if I'm still getting enough of a body react in a different way, then I know it's still correct. But if I'm getting a true, my body is legitimately sick, or there is a true no because of something else has happened in the day, or something that is clearly feeling like a no on that day, then I don't. It has actually turned out to then be the right thing, because there was either a car accident that I may have gotten into or stuck in traffic for how many hours that I heard about later, or mom was actually sick, so it was actually better that I didn't go. Or in this case too, when we start to tie in like big family dynamics, if I don't want to go and my child or children, something happens with them that causes a reaction to be, actually, I have to look after my kid, or I have to do this thing. Those are then those next in the day moment responses that your body and the energy of the universe and everything surrounding you is getting to respond to instead, even though you still planned ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
It does. It does.
It was a long-winded explanation, but now, Ada, let's hear from you, of me talking about the commitment and then what it feels like to talk to your body on a day-to-day basis and talk to your sacral center.
Yeah. It was a big realization for me when I realized that when we're taught how to make decisions, it's very much a head thing. We're taught to do the rational thing, the polite thing, the civilized thing, keep your promises. At least that's how I was raised. But the practice of checking in and getting that gut reaction was really revolutionary for me. I'm feeling a lot of resistance though to the, if you're getting a no, cancel. And I think that this is, maybe it comes back to the environment and the digestion thing, because it raises the question of, why do I so often get a no to things that were a hard yes when it comes time to actually do them? And I feel as though the left arrows are perpetually off. And I think this comes into the third question about marketplaces.
We'll get there. I have the perfect answer for you today. We'll see where the tangent goes, but I know how to answer it for you.
I'm wondering if the issue is that I'm finding that I don't have the energy for these things because I haven't been giving myself the proper environment and the proper fuel ahead of time. And so
I think it could play into it, yes. But even if what we're taking in environmentally and where we are isn't exactly right, our body is still always trying to put us where it is right, or feed us what we need.
Oh, yeah.
Without us even realizing it. And the generator and manifesting generator shoulding themselves, as what you described. I'm going to put it in that lingo as well, because sometimes people also resonate a lot with, I should do this and I should do that because of how they are raised, or what society has taught us is correct, or even what we in our systems value at different moments in our life, even as our values can change.
Mm-hmm.
Through life experience and all the things, is because I resonated so deeply with the question for being a generator. But I challenge it so much, what my yes and my no is now, of really on the moment checking, but still allowing myself to plan. And that even somebody can tell me this is going to happen at this time. Oh, okay. I feel like my riff might be really cool for also talking with a professional astrologer. Even if somebody tells me, somebody in the world gives me their opinion about that chicken isn't good for me, or an astrologer gives me their opinion, you're going to meet the love of your life at this time. That's also like pre-planning. That's also like, oh my God, everything's got to be right. Or, oh my God, I need to stop eating chicken and I just ate a shit ton of it last week. Fuck. We can be like, why am I doing this thing? And if we have that expectation of this thing we need to go do or this thing that we're waiting to happen, and then we're let down when it doesn't happen, or we go to the thing and we're not happy afterwards and we're frustrated afterwards, as generators, we keep putting ourselves back in the hole of not giving us enough compassion that whatever decision we made on that day was still okay.
Yes, yeah.
And even though that expectation that we legit just made up in our mind and let's bring an ego into this moment, the ego that tried to keep us safe of being like, yep, this is the thing, so just wait for that thing, is, I feel like, where I'm going to tie this in full circle. I was like, does Ada have a particular gift in her graph that gives her a certain thing that could show up like mine? She kind of does. I'm going to go on a side tangent. Ada has a particular gift. If somebody has this one in your graph, it's called the gift of logic. Literally what it's called.
Huh?
It's number 4, and it resides in the ajna, or the upside down triangle at the top of the graph. So not the upright crown, but the one underneath. 4 is logical brain. And even though it's on the right side of that triangle in the right hemisphere of the brain, it's very left activated. It's very, I see the step process, and this is how I do the thing. Ada has logic in lots of different ways in her life. If things aren't going logically in the way, or she's planned it out and my body says no, why is it saying no? She wants the logical explanation for it.
Yes, I do.
Okay, brought that full circle specifically to Ada's graph. I'm glad I looked at the graph. It was getting really philosophical as well. Just trying to help the generators realize that in the moment, no, and the should I or shouldn't I is going to come up our entire life. It's like this never-ending battle. But the more, even for me, that life felt like it started to take an energetic upturn for me after an interesting 2023. And for being a year into knowing about my design, oh, I just have to do it, I'm excited. Oh, I just have to work on this, or blah, blah, blah. I felt like all of 2023 was an ego death for me, of not allowing my sacral to just naturally guide me. I had to think about it. Then after Pluto, we'll go astrology. We're going there. After Pluto moved into Aquarius on January 19th, that was a whole shit show for me personally. A lot of shit came up. But after that happened and we got into mid-February, I was like, fuck it. I'm just not going to try to pre-think what I should or shouldn't do. Even if I'm still going to plan that I'm going to do this event here and this is what I want next and this, we're just going to roll with it. And I have felt more myself than I have, I think, ever in my entire life in a month. Now maybe 2 months.
It's beautiful.
Which is bonkers. All of last year I knew shouldn't, sacral death, or like trying to figure that out. And I said yes ahead of time, and now I don't want to go, but I still really checking in on the day, and really checking in on the day is all you have to do. Even probably the, not, as you said, the answer you didn't want to hear. To bring it back to you, Ada, what did all of that nugget go for in your brain? I want to hear your brain.
It just makes me wish. There are so many reasons I am glad that I don't live in the Roman Empire, but there's one reason I wish I lived in the Roman Empire, which is that society was built on this. The human designers, correct me if I'm wrong, we say that 70% of the population is generators.
Yes.
And
a generator or manifesting generator. We have the defined sacral center going on in those graphs for people listening.
Yeah. And so the Roman Empire, around this kind of stuff in particular, was like generator paradise. Like, they would check in with a diviner who was really just a person who was checking in with the sacral of the moment. And if The diviners said, it's not a good time. Don't go to the party. They didn't go. And everyone understood. The omens were bad. We don't do the thing. And I feel like we've built this society, and here's my Aquarius moon coming out, that
Yes.
is designed around either a design that doesn't exist or a design that is in the smallest minority. And I feel like this problem of everything having to be planned out ahead, and then it's like you said that you would do a thing, and then therefore you must, because we all live according to this ticking clock. It's just not how most of us are supposed to work.
No. Where we're headed with understanding and just embracing what human design means for humans that are into it right now is that since 2020, the astrology as a whole has skyrocketed in its popularity to just pop culture. When we've had astrology literally since people started to look at the stars. I love that you went back to talking about Roman Empire. I was like, I knew Ada would go there. Is that it's meant to help us move into this new time frame that's happening now. We've been feeling different shifts for a long time. People know that there's lots of things in the world that need to change on top of each other for it to feel like our globe as a whole is operating as a collective, as opposed to each other kicking and screaming, why are you doing this and why are you doing that? But the funny thing of me saying operating as a collective is that human design wants us to operate as individuals. But the thing is that if we operate as our individual self and don't go to the party when our individual self says don't go to the party, that is operating for the best interest of the collective. What you literally said about this person in the Roman Empire saying if vibe is bad, that helps everyone not go to the party. So it's like we have it backwards.
Yeah.
And we're all, some of us trying to scream, at least you and I, loud enough to be like, guys, just do you, babe.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Does that help give you some on the day? Ada's talking to Ada in her brain. How do I decide what to do?
Yeah. Yeah, it does. Thank you.
You're welcome. I always check in with people. Did you feel like we answered the question? Because we go on tangents. That's the trainer / wanting to make sure that people have tangible in the moment, day to day. I know what to do now.
Yeah.
Because even I want that. I'm like, I need to know what to do now. Because then a scenario will pop up and you're like, oh my God, I've been here before, but now what do I do?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. I'm all about that. Theory is one thing, but what do you actually do with this stuff?
Exactly. Okay. We're going to do question 3. I was about to say 4, and I was like, wait, no, 3.
Oh,
so Ada's third question also pertains to those 4 transformations. She was starting to talk about it ahead of time when we were still talking about responsing, which is great. I love that you tied it in, Ada. Ada has an environment in which her body wants to be in more of the time. I say that in a particular way because we are going to be in multiple different environments throughout our whole life, but our environment on our human design graph is where our body wants to be the majority of the time. Ada's environment is called Markets Internal, and her arrow is pointed to the left. So we're going to get into what a left arrow means, which is great. Ada feels as though it's the one place in her graph thus far that she's gone down rabbit holes on that she does not resonate with. Because an actual market or a place where there is hustle and bustle, when we think about maybe what we've been told in our life of what a market actually is anxiety inducing and just not a place that Ada wants to be. So why do I have this? Because it doesn't make sense. Did I round
I
up
must be
questions?
missing. That's always been the answer with human design so far. I just don't understand it yet.
It's okay. It's okay. And the thing with our designs is that even for people that are listening and they've found this some way, the reason why I started this podcast was because I'm the nerd, and I could explain all of these numbers and all of these things to Ada in a human design call. But then Ada doesn't know how in the moment to say yes or no. These in the moment conversations of checking in, hey, did that make sense? Or let's talk about this thing in the Roman Empire to make that make sense to you, and just making this conversation exciting is way more how I have felt that I have also learned better about my own design when I've looked at it or talked about it to people, or when I just get so excited that my friend hasn't learned about it and they come over and we have coffee or whatever. And that's the moment that I want to give the world how they learn their design and how they embrace this thing called human design, because it will feel like, oh my God, why am I not getting it? Because language is such an interesting thing. Markets means something to somebody, but it can also mean something to somebody else. To first say, a left arrow, if you have a left arrow on any of your arrows that are surrounding your crown and your ajna, in this case for environment, and Ada's environment should bring out some sort of movement in her. Her body wants to move or be interactive in some capacity. That does not mean that in every environment that Ada's in, she needs to be sweating and or lifting weights. That's not, at all. But that Ada's environment is causing her to do something, even talking. Like, that's action. That's something where we're involved. I'm so excited to say this to you, Ada. Markets with regards to human design environment is, yes, a place that has bustle, a place where there is exchanging of goods. That's a good way to explain a market. One way that Ada works is online. So she can connect with clients all over the world. I'm in Toronto, Canada. Ada's in the States. We're in different countries. And however, market is also a meeting of lots of different types of things. It could be cultures, it could be foods. There's the flowers, and there's the this, and there's the meat counter and the cheese counter. And you can flow in and out whenever you want. An online Zoom room is a market.
Oh.
There's people from all over the world in one place. And there's exchanging of information or goods, whatever we're talking about. And Ada is the one leading it. She's in control. She's actively making the thing happen. Do you realize what I just did? I was like,
I can't wait to tell this to Ada.
that's how Ada works. Creating an online community, for at least part of her work, an online community where lots of different people come together. They share information on the same thing. They jive. They go about their life because they've gotten something from one place, which was the market. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes.
I knew that would make sense to you. So a market can be any hub, in my opinion. Can be any hub of how different things come together that in this case Ada is in control of because she's the one actively putting it together. Right? With the left arrow.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, another question to ask you to tie in a different type of market and you being the one in control with the left arrow. Is in your family dynamic, are you the one that in the home, you're the person that's placing things where they need to be and changing things around if you like to have everything feel like it's cohesive, even if the couch was from mom's house and the coffee table is from your husband's whatever family, twice removed cousin, and you're the one curating and tasting things and putting them together?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm definitely the one in wherever I live who's okay, this goes here, that goes there.
Cool. There's also a sense that comes about when we are in the environments and taking care of the environments that we're in the way that our body wants to. And Ada has the word taste, and that her kind of like another superpower that she has is that she's really good at curating. Like, actually, like, no, this needs to go here, or this needs to be said in this forum of this chat in order to stimulate conversation about this thing. In the world of social media, posting my moment of how I see something in this big conglomerate of a market of social media, I'm still in my booth stating my name. I love how this is resonating for you. Go on something that this popped up in my head about this thing.
When you put it in terms of control, that really just made it all click for me. I don't like going to the mall. I don't like going to farmers markets because I'm spending the entire time that I'm there quietly criticizing the traffic control and the arrangement of things, and this isn't the way that I would do it. And
that sentence, "this is the way I would do it," is popping up in Ada's brain because she is the one that wants to curate it. You're the one that wants to curate your market in the way that you want to. Yeah. And that's the whole moment of what the left arrow means for you, because you're actively doing it. How your body wants to know that tastefully, this is how I would do the thing. And if I'm not the one that's in control of that, not in a negative way, there's not control in like saying in a bad essence, but it just makes Ada's skin crawl if she can't do that. So why would her body want to be in that environment? I don't know.
Yeah, it's something that I've just come to terms with about myself over the last few years. Like, I have a really hard time going to other people's conferences, being on other people's Discord servers. Like, I'm the person who, when there's like a group thing, like podcasts like this are amazing, like when it's one or two people. But if I'm not driving the group effort, I just feel profoundly uncomfortable.
And a market is a converging of just a place, whether it's on the internet or a physical place of where things come together to then be exchanged. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a physical, what we think as a market. And when I realized that today, looking at that and thinking about what you do, I was like, I'm so excited to tell Ada, because now I feel like you'll be like, now I'm going to curate all of the spaces.
Oh, yeah.
More than you already do. Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah. Like, I recently had this breakthrough with Threads, and talking with you about this right now is making me go, I have the hardest time with social media. And then the other day I was like, all right, I need to have a place where I connect with other professional, like metaphysical practitioners, like tarot readers and other astrologers, and of course, human design people. And I was like, okay, the place where I connect with professionals is going to be Threads. And I'm going to talk as if I'm talking to professionals. And I'm going to there's the arranging again, arrange my presence on there as this is a pro discussion place. And as soon as I start to get other discussion in that's not at a pro level, I start to be like, because this is my space. This is my space to meet with other professionals. And if you're not a professional, find me on Instagram, because that's where I'm organizing that kind of thing. And so this conversation is making me realize that I need to start to think about my little hubs where I connect with groups of people as something that I'm driving, even if it's actually Mark Zuckerberg who's driving the algorithm, you know?
That's amazing. Because now that you're like, okay, I've got this intention, and everybody talks about manifestation. I'm fucking obsessed with manifestation these days. If I just think about it, it's going to come to fruition.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, but this is where parts of me is like, maybe you need to be stimulated to realize that this is how I treat this thing, and this is how it will feel in this place. That in this place is where I'm drawing in these professionals and I'm curating in this way. It's going to bring out, it will literally weed it out without you having to think I need to manifest, you know?
Yeah.
So cool. Oh my goodness. I feel like that one really hit home for you today.
It really did. I feel like I have permission to step into my control freakness in this particular area of my life. I'm being a bit facetious, but also at the same time, it sounds like at the risk of oversimplifying, I've been designed to be a party planner. And if I'm not being a party planner, I'm the dog running around herding the ducks.
Literally. I love how you brought back that analogy that we talked about earlier. Yeah, it's so bonkers when different parts of our design all of a sudden make sense. And that control is we have it, but we don't. How we relate to language when we in our brain have something described to us is such a interesting moment.
Yeah.
To then just give us a little bit more sense of ease. In that this is the way when I think about myself in this way, even though it may sound controlling, is actually the way that I'm supposed to operate.
Yes. Yes.
Nothing gets better than that. I'll say to wrap up, because we answered that one pretty quick. I'm proud of ourselves for answering that quickly. Is that human design is a system that is trying to give our bodies its authority back as to how we just walk around the planet, how we interact and have our human experience. Because at least in the past 100 years, we've given our sovereignty and our authority over ourselves to governments, to parents, to our partner, to whoever, to a religious figure. And at the end of the day, we still have free will. We still have this moment of listening to that if our body is telling us we need to go to the bathroom, you better fucking go to the bathroom or, right? To put it into layman's terms.
Yeah, yeah.
I think it's why I'm so obsessed with it, because as a kid growing up, I was somebody that was raised with values, wholehearted. This is how life operates. But yet the whole time there was an underlying of, but is it?
Yes.
That's definitely a part of my design. Like when I look at my gifts and my graph, like I'm supposed to have that question all the time. But like everybody has that question all the time.
Yeah.
Was it? And if we just get to be like, body, you got this. You're fearless. You're fine. Life gets pretty exciting.
It really does.
Mm-hmm. Is there anything about, since you've known about human design, or just, I'll say this one other thing and I'll let Ada go. On a riff, it felt like the biggest compliment I'd been given in 2 years. I don't know if Ada knows this. When it was happening, I kind of said it in the moment, but now reflecting on it, I'm like, oh my God. So Ada has allowed me to do these really fun lectures in her narrative astrology lab. We're online and we just talk about human design for an hour. And I had never had a place to do that before joining the lab. And at the beginning of my first lecture, Ada introduces me and she's like, out of all of these human design people I've come across so far, Francis is the only one that I understand. In the moment, I was like, oh my, like I was trying to be super just grateful in the moment. And then I realized later, I was like, oh my God, it's my calling. It felt like the biggest compliment I'd been given in understanding and starting to learn this work in only 2 years. Anybody that's felt like I need to go do something that I've only been doing for X period of time, just listen to your body. You'll find the way that the universe is trying to get it out of you. And Ada was one of those people that gave me more confidence to even do this podcast. So thank you, Ada, for trusting in me and being like, I get you, so keep going.
It's really true. It's really true. And if people have listened this long, they already know that they understand you because they haven't gone off and done something else. But
yes.
I find, and this, I didn't come up with this, I got this from C.S. Lewis, but I often find that it's the people who are new who are the best teachers, especially for other people who are new, because you remember where I am really clearly, and you're not 50 years down the line and you're like, oh, wait, we have to work now to make sure that you don't run into this barrier that I ran into in year 34. Like, you know that when you're at the beginning, you need to not be thinking so far ahead, and you can just be with the person where they are, and you can really deeply empathize with that. That's how I feel when we talk about human design. Like, you don't
I'm
just
so
get human
glad.
design, you get me.
Thank you, Ada. I hope that people feel that from this podcast, and that human design does not have to be complicated. And yes, we talked about generators a lot because we are generators, and things about arrows, markets being something particular, and fear being something particular. But we talked about anxiety. Everybody knows what anxiety is. We talked about Roman Empire. Most people know about the Roman Empire, you know. It's just a random conversation that hopefully finds somebody in the world that gives them, I can listen to myself. That's all I think I've been put here on this earth to do. People, you got this. You got this moment. Ada, thank you so much for chatting today. And we're going to wrap it all up for the day. Here is a Fran frequency just for you.